All right, good afternoon to the East Coast people and good morning to our West Coast people who have joined the call. I'm going to wait a couple of minutes as attendees start trickling in. We've got about 34 people in here so far, but while we wait, I'll take a couple of minutes to just let everybody know that we are recording this presentation, so you'll get an email tomorrow around this time that has a copy of the presentation, and we'll also post it online. So anybody who wasn't able to attend will be able to get a copy of it. Right now, everybody is on listen only mode. Everybody's on mute. But what we'll do is there is a question box. So as Matt is doing his presentation, if you have questions, just go ahead, put them in the question box, and then we'll answer them at the end of each topic. So just definitely feel free to put in any questions in the question box. Feel free to ask questions, maybe even unrelated to the topic, and we can hold those to the end and go over anything that maybe we didn't address today that you have questions on. And I guess we're a couple of minutes in, so I think we can probably go ahead and get started.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Heather. So thank you everybody for joining us today. My name is Matt Anctil, and I'm one of the directors of product delivery here at MPay. And my focus is on the suite of basically web-based products that we offer here at MPay. So time management, next gen, my pay entry, as well as the my pay entry mobile application. So today we're just going to chat a little bit about some of the time management work that the team has been working on. Again, we'll kind of go through some of the questions that may arise, as Heather mentioned, but please, anytime, feel free to reach out to me either through my phone number listed here or email if you have any kind of questions about our products or maybe have some thoughts on how we can improve our offerings. I'm always try to make myself available as much as possible, so please do feel free to reach out if you feel the need. So let me go ahead and jump into the agenda. All right, so to start things off, I wanted to cover a topic that it's not new functionality, but it's something that I get asked about, every once in a while. So that's clocking in and out and kind of what the options are there for employees. And so I just wanted to cover that and just kind of a little bit of detail just to remind folks what the different ways that employees are able to clock in and out using our products. Then we'll move on and talk about one of the pieces of functionality we launched not too long ago, but the ability to add notes when clocking in and out, and just kind of a refresher and a couple notes of how we're looking to improve that functionality in the future. And then we'll talk about two different items that are, one of which is the employee job assignment, which is in the middle of kind of the last rounds of QA right now. So I'll kind of speak to that in more detail and what benefits that will bring. And then the final item will be adding additional amounts, which is not quite in our testing process yet, but it's in kind of the midst of development. And so that will be kind of coming in a future release. But again, I'll get into all those things in a little bit more detail as we progress through the slides. And then, of course, we'll leave time for questions throughout, and then a little bit more time at the end if there are any at that point. All right. So clocking in and out. So there's really a few ways to make this functionality available. And so I kind of think about it as two different buckets. One being what I'll call the employee punch. And what I mean by that is giving employees kind of the option to log in through their own account and punch in. And then the other bucket, which I'll again kind of dive into another slide here, but the kiosk clock mode is the other. And so I'll hold off on speaking to that one just for a few minutes here and start with the employee punch. And so there's two options here really. There's the employees could be set up as a punch employee and log directly into the time management web application. So, mytime.pantry.com, and then whatever your full company URL is. And then through there, they can utilize the punch in and out screen, or button rather, and then supply whatever details that they have available to them. A lot of them, you can set it up to be read-only, as I have here, in terms of job codes and departments, and then they can submit their punch that way. The other way that they can sign in using their own credentials would be through our mobile app, the My Pantry mobile app. And so for that path, they would have their ESS account or My Pantry account, download our native mobile app to their device, and then log in, and then they would be able to punch through that flow, as you can see on the right-hand side here. And so, that's really handy if the company is looking to let their employees punch in if they're off site, for example, or just want to give them the flexibility to use a personal device. Or again, you could have a computer set up running the time management application over here on the left-hand side. So it gives them that flexibility if that works for their needs. The other option is the kiosk clock mode, and where this becomes really handy is if a company wants to have a central location for employees to clock in and out from. And so, again, there's kind of two paths you can take. You could have our time management web application running on a computer or a tablet device. And again, that's on the left-hand side here. And, it's a really simple, kind of streamlined punch in and out process. The employee comes to that device, they see the screen that we see here on the left-hand side, input their clock ID, and they can clock in and out or transfer. And then this screen resets for the next employee that comes in. So they don't have to remember, another username, another password. It's just their clock ID that they would need in this case. And then on the right-hand side, it's very similar, but this is for their using on our native mobile application. So if a location or a company has a tablet they want to utilize, they can set that up somewhere that's central for employees to access, and they log in using their clock or time clock user, so kind of more of an administrative account. And then once they do that, every employee that comes to that device will see this keypad as displayed here. And so again, they just need to enter their clock ID and then punch, and then it resets back to this keypad, and the next employee can do the same. So it's really, again, really helpful if you're really trying to consolidate where your employees can punch from to kind of a single location or just a few locations within the building or wherever it might be, given the company's needs again here. So that's really, again, I didn't want to take too much time to go into this necessarily, but it is something that I get asked about, like I mentioned, and I just wanted to hopefully bring a little clarity to the different options that are there. And so again, hopefully that was helpful, but if you do have any questions, I can certainly answer those for you.
All right. So we do have a question on the security roles. It's kind of a long question. Let me see. It's small text. So can the privileges be categorized, and is it possible to add checkboxes so we can see what has been chosen, kind of like code groups? The comment is it would just make it a lot easier.
Check boxes to see what's been selected. I don't know if I totally understand.
Let me see here. So I guess maybe if Cheryl wants to maybe provide some clarifying information, that would be good. But if not, maybe we can just follow up after the call and get more information on that.
Sure. Yeah. I can. Yes, it would be helpful to have a little clarification. I don't know if we're just on the security screen where you can add permissions if they're just looking to display what's assigned to a particular role, if they want to see that in a different manner. I'm not quite sure, instead of the current view, but we can come back to that if we're able to get just a little bit more detail. So
I think the main thing is that it's hard to tell what is assigned when you're looking at it. So you can't tell what items are in each role unless you choose it, and then it tells you what's there. Um, Also, alpha order would be great. And Cheryl says she's going to provide more information on it. But it sounds like you can see the roles, but you don't know what exactly they mean.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
definitely understand, the current kind of view into that data. Once you select the role, it's a just a list of all the permissions that have been added, and it is. I agree that it's a little cumbersome to work through that and really um, efficiently kind of digest what's been done for a given security role. So yeah, there's absolutely room for improvement there, and I think we probably already have it noted, but if not, I'll make sure we have something in our backlog that we can take a closer look at that, because yeah, I agree 100% that we can make that a much better interaction for the users. So
Okay, a couple more questions.
sure.
Do we plan to ever offer hardware devices again? And what about biometric clocks?
Well, my understanding is we have been moving away from offering um, actual physical time clocks other than just a tablet device. But um, so that's the latest information that I have, was that we've been moving away from that model. So feel free to follow up with me if you want, and I can try to dig into that a little bit more. But that would be I'd have to ask some other folks, but that's the latest that I have, at least.
Yeah, I would say that for the people that asked those questions, maybe if you can follow up, if you're looking at, specific vendors that you feel like, you know, your customers expect to be able to use, um, and things like that. So definitely some specific examples would be helpful for sure. All right, we got another question. All right, heavy on the questions at the beginning today, so that's good. Um, all right, so are there plans to handle blended pay rates? The lack of this is a showstopper for many of our prospects, which I've definitely heard that.
Um, I guess it's not on our short-term roadmap, but I would love to learn more about what the needs are there. So yeah, I guess I'd be curious to see. I can't say that it's actually been brought directly to my attention. Not to say that it hasn't been kind of escalated to certain folks, but I personally would love to have a conversation to learn a little bit more about what the need is there, and see where we can potentially slot that into the roadmap. Um, so yeah, I'm also happy to follow up as well if we can just make sure we note who had asked that, Heather.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. Um, all right. So another question. So is there an option for a mass punch? So for example, a supervisor wants to punch in for a department on a job site.
Yeah, so kind of like a crew punch, or I'm sure there's many names for it, but that is something that we definitely want to implement. It was part of our old, I believe, our old clock entry app. And then when we moved to the new pay entry app, it was just something we hadn't been able to implement yet. Um, so kind of on that note, I was going to speak to this a little bit later, but now it seems like a good time that we have actually recently hired a new mobile application developer, which we're all very excited about. And so a lot of these features that we had wanted to implement, I guess almost a year and a half ago now, we're finally back in a place where we can start really working through the backlog for our mobile application. And crew punching is definitely one of the items that has been requested by more than one client. So it's definitely high up on the priority list. So yes, I mean that is on kind of on our short list of things to implement, and as well as uh, a lot of time management functionality. Really, again, kind of getting ahead of myself, but we're we're looking to, especially in 2022, how do we kind of simplify the employee experience instead of having them having to go into my pantry or the mobile app, or go to time management for submitting time off. We're trying to really consolidate the time management functionality specifically into the mobile app, into my pantry, to just again make that experience much more straightforward for the employee. Um, So we have, again, a lot planned. There's going to be, I'm sure, many webinars coming up in the near future here on the mobile app and the things that we're working on. But again, noted that group punch, if you will, is something that a lot of folks are asking for. So yeah, we'll definitely keep that in mind. And again, kind of a long-winded response. I apologize, but it is on our radar for sure.
All right. So next question. um, all right. So this might be more of a question for Nate on the support side, but I think you might have an answer for it as well. But for people who do have the existing current clocks, where can they get supplies? Because they've been having to go straight to the manufacturer. A support has indicated that we don't have any of those supplies. So I just wanted to understand if you had any more details on that.
I don't, unfortunately. Let's touch base with Nate. I think he might have um, a little bit more information than I do in terms of what we're suggesting for folks.
I think we're going to have a long follow-up email after
Yes.
after this call. So there's still a couple of other questions. So maybe we'll cut it off and move on to the next one, and we can come back to some of these. So someone is asking for when somebody punches in, it would be nice if it would say like successful punch or
Mhm.
something like that, and I totally agree with that. I'm
Yes.
definitely a proponent of knowing you punched in successfully.
Yeah. So I think there's a couple items that are in this neighborhood, if you will. So providing a little bit more feedback when punching, but would also be great, which I hear a lot about, is can we see kind of, are we punching in or out versus just we submitted a punch, but we don't know if I'm punching in or out. And so that's another item that sounds easy, but it's actually rather complex on the back end. So we all would love to have it, and it's something we're going to try to tackle. But it's again, there's a bit of complexity to work through there. So yes, those are items that we're definitely going to try to work through. Once the new developer, he's still coming up to speed a little bit and familiarizing himself, but items such as that are again, things that we would love to make improvements on.
Okay, all right. So with that, there's still a couple of questions. They're not specifically related to this area necessarily, so we can go ahead and move along, and then I'll ask any of the unasked questions later.
All right. Thank you, Heather. And thank you for all the questions. Appreciate
Yes,
it.
thank you.
All right. So adding notes. So as I mentioned, this functionality was something we've been off, or that has been in time management for a little bit now. I guess it was maybe the last time management release that we had that this went out. And so just some of the benefits of being able to add a note. So for employees, when they're clocking in and out, it just allows them to give some context to their manager if need be. So if they're 10 minutes late for some reason, or they're punching out early or punching out late for that matter, they're able to give that manager a little bit of information as to why that's happening. And then on the administrative side, you're able to review those notes and just understand why an employee may be kind of punching off the normal schedule that you would be expecting. So in terms of usage, I'll start on the employee side here, and essentially the same functionality but different views here. So on the left-hand side, this would be through the web application. So again, mytime.payentry.com. They're punching in or out, and in this case, Leslie was running late, so she wants to let her manager know. She adds a note in and she submits her punch. And we'll kind of see what that looks like on the flip side in just a second here. But that same thing can be accomplished on the mobile application as well. So just below the employee name and clock ID here, you can see I added a note of leaving early. And then again, you could submit your punch and it would be visible in the time card detail. And so over on the administrative side, we have a time card detail up here up in the top of this screenshot, and I'll just call your attention kind of to the punch down here on November 11th. And so you can see on the in punch, we see view notes. So that's a pretty good indicator that somebody had added a note, because the normal button would just be add notes, which you can see over here on the out column. But in this case, again, Leslie punched in, she left a note, and so this is kind of a call to action. I want to review this note, and so when I click on it, this is the information that's displayed down here. And as a manager or administrator, you can come in and modify this note if you want to, or just kind of close it out, or you can even add a new note if you need to, on either the employee's behalf or for your own record keeping, whatever it might be. But that functionality exists there. And so that's the functionality as it exists today. We are looking to make some improvements, particularly on I'll say the administrative side. So right now it's, when you're reviewing time cards, you have to go through and click these view notes buttons if you want to actually review what was added. So we're looking at ways to add higher level views into this data. So whether it's a view of show me all notes for a given time period for all employees, or adding a new report where you can pull this information, but basically just simplifying that experience when you're trying to review a pay period and move through this data in an efficient manner. So that's kind of on the notes V2, if you will, that we're going to be looking at kind of early in 2022 is what we're looking at now. But if you have any other thoughts of if you're using this now and you have some thoughts on how it could be improved based on your needs, then I'd love to hear that as well. But it is something we're looking to make some improvements on. All right, I'll pause there, Heather. I don't know if there was any new questions that came up related to that topic, but.
Well, so one question came through that I answered, and so I'll put you on the spot to see if we have the same response. But the question is, do you have a future plan for scripting abilities to address more detailed rules, such as holiday pay if worked the day and the day before and the day after, or if you punch on a Saturday, get paid special rates, etc.
Yeah, a scripting module of some sort has been an ask since before I joined the company. And so I think we would love to have it, but honestly, I don't know when it would realistically be something we could tackle. So that's kind of the quick answer is I don't know that it's not on our current product roadmap, and I'm not really sure when we'd be able to get to something like that.
Yeah, I think, I would just add that that's something that I know that Swipe Clock has that makes it, easy to apply all the different rules that, need to happen for a customer. But from the support and administrative side of things, that's a difficult thing to support when everybody kind of writes things a little bit differently to accomplish different, tasks. So we, at least when we kind of started building time management, we were looking at how do we address the 80% and to understand, what are the special pay rates that, what are the rules on it, so we can have people point and click and select so that, you're able to see in the user interface what you've set it up for as opposed to having a script in the back end. I know that's something that it's difficult to manage once it's there, and I do understand that it's a competitive disadvantage against Swipe Clock. But as Matt said, even if we wanted to do it, it sounds like it would be a big lift. Okay, so there are some more questions here. When requesting time off and a note is entered on the request, why doesn't it show it in the email back to the employee?
For a time off request, I don't know that there's an explicit reason why it's not included. So yeah, I'm not aware of a specific reason why that was left off of the email. So we could certainly look into that if that's some functionality that would be helpful. But again, there was no reason why it was intentionally left out of that the email communication.
Okay. All right. So this next one, I think I understand the need for this one. But basically, it's kind of long. So the administrator needs to be able to override automatic entries created by some policies. So, for example, if for some reason pay for a specific holiday is not applicable for a specific employee in the pay period, the administrator needs to be able to delete that holiday pay on the time card. I feel like we've had issues with this before as well. But currently, the administrator cannot delete the entry and must create a new holiday policy and then create a new master policy containing all of the applicable policies and apply it to the employee. Um, and then the administrator needs to remember to reassign the normal master policy to the employee after the payroll is processed. So I cannot speak to all of that because I do not do our time management administration. But does that ring a bell for you, Matt?
It does not actually. So again, a lot of these things are and sort of unfortunately end up kind of being news to me during these calls, um, but that does seem like quite a bit of a workaround or additional work that's needed there. So um, I feel like there has to be some ways that we can make that a simpler process for folks. So um, again, I wish I had a solution right now for you, but I think it's just another takeaway item that we have to dig into and look closer at. Which again, we're happy to do that. So it's again, I hate not having a great answer right away, but it's helpful to hear some of these pain points as we're going through this. So yeah, we'll again another thing we'll have to add to our backlog here.
Yes, definitely. So keep them coming. But that was the last question, so we can go ahead and move on.
All right, thank you. All right. So now jumping over to some of the new functionality that the team is working on. So employee job assignment is the one that's currently in the late stages of our quality assurance process. And so this will be coming out in the next release, really in the next couple of weeks here is what we're looking at. And so for just to kind of explain what this exactly will provide, and it's right now in time management, well, I should say this kind of impacts time management as well as your pay entry setup. And so if you have, let's say, 100 jobs set up in the on NextGen, and that information syncs over to time management, when employees are going to punch in, or as an administrator, if you happen to be editing a time card detail or interacting anywhere where there's a drop down for a listing of jobs, you're going to see all 100, I'll say active jobs because obsolete jobs are removed, but obviously that's, not every employee may need to care about all 100 jobs. And so it's, you're having to scroll through the list and really try to kind of find the right entry. So it can be a little time consuming, prone to error if you're trying to sort through that much data. And so the goal here for employee job assignment is, let's set the data up on the NextGen side so you can tie specific jobs to specific employees. And then that data will sync over to time management and they will only see the jobs that are relevant to them. So again, instead of seeing all 100 jobs in this example, they might only see 5 or 10 or however it is that you had set that up in NextGen. So for this, I'll just actually start on the kind of the admin side of things here. And I spoke to this a little bit, but where you really want to start with the configuration is setting up the company level jobs. And so a lot of folks might be familiar with this, but we're looking at a company profile here. And as you can see, I've added a bunch of jobs for this company. Some are inactive, some are active. But again, this would be kind of step one if you didn't already have job information entered in pay entry. The next step would be going through the employee setup process. And so what we'll find after this NextGen release that's coming up, there's going to be a new accordion, as we call them, on the employee profile called jobs. And like many of our other interfaces, there's a grid that will be there. And if we choose to click it to add a new job, you'll be presented with a list of active jobs associated with that company. And it's pretty simple. You just pick your job, start and end date if you need to kind of provide a specific time frame, and then save that record off. And you can see I've added one here. And then of course, if you, as new jobs become available, or whatever it might be, you would want to add additional jobs as needed. And then that data will sync over as part of the time management sync. That's kind of this last step here. And then that's where we can jump over to view when the next time the employee logs in after that data is synced. As you can see here, instead of seeing all of those active jobs that were set up on the company level, I only see the single job that was associated to this employee. So in this case, it's a welder job. So much easier. They're not having to cycle through. So it's just a much cleaner UI for the end user. I will say that we wanted to get this kind of out the door, but we're going to circle back and look to add some additional tools on the next gen side to make that association process simpler. So kind of think of it as almost bulk adding jobs, if you will. So we're looking at possibly adding them to payroll groups if you utilize those, but also potentially kind of integrating it with rates. So if you already set up rates that have a job associated with them for an employee, that would potentially automatically add the job to that employee as well. So just again, kind of some simplified ways of adding jobs in the most efficient way possible is kind of the goal for the next iteration of this functionality. Didn't quite make it into this release, but it is something we're going to probably not in Q4 at this point because it's pretty late in Q4, but we're going to circle back in Q1 of 2022 and try to make some of those additional enhancements. So I'll pause there because the next slide is another topic. So Heather, I don't know if there was some new questions.
Yes, we had a couple have come through. So the first question is, are inactive jobs still going to show in time management?
No, as part of a recent, this is the last release, if a job is marked as obsolete or inactive in NextGen, that would no longer appear in time management. I'll say the caveat to that is if that job that is inactive is still used in an open payroll in time management, then it would still be shown. So if you're still seeing jobs that you think are inactive for some reason on the time management side, I would be suspicious that there's an open payroll somewhere that's still referencing that. But yes, that should be the way it's working. So if you're seeing some unexpected behavior there, certainly reach out to either Nate's team or you can send it to me and we can take a closer look.
All right. So the last question is there a maximum number of jobs that can be loaded in? We have a client who is a job shop and they want to punch per job, but the worry is that it will slow the system down.
That's a great question. We haven't gone through stress testing this yet, so I'm not sure what the maximum would be. So I'll have to, I guess, get back to you because I don't know. We're not aware of a limit right now. I know of at least one client in NextGen that I think it was, it was in the 30,000 plus range of jobs, which again, I guess that's realistic for some companies, but that is quite a large number. And on the NextGen side, that seems to be manageable to some extent. It does cause some performance issues that we've seen, and then I can't speak to how that will impact time management. So I think at some point we'll hit a threshold where it could be we could take a performance hit, but I think it would be relatively high in terms of the number of jobs that would cause that.
Okay, great. And that is all the questions now.
All right, thank you. All right. So moving on, so additional amounts. And so this piece of functionality will not make it into the next release of time management, but we're basically, as soon as this release goes out, we're switching gears and development team is going to start looking at this. Well, I should say they've already looked at it. We've gone through some first passes in terms of UX design and prototyping. So that development effort will continue as soon as this next release is out. But kind of the goal of additional amounts, which is sort of a generic term because we want it to be a rather flexible tool, but the original I guess source of this request was really from the hospitality industry and needing to be able to track tips. And so so that's kind of where this started. So now when an employee clocks in or out, they'll be able to associate or add a tip amount, if you will, and then that can be kind of tracked through the payroll process sent when we're exporting payroll over to PayEntry. And so again, it can kind of not as much of a manual process in terms of tracking that information, handing it over to a manager. It will be all something that's provided through the application itself. And the reason we tried to keep it generic is that we really could see this also just being used as a very kind of, I'll say, simplified reimbursement process as well. So if they have any type of expense that they need to be reimbursed for, it's possible that you could utilize this tool. And so depending on kind of some of the feedback we get, we could see that we may build that part out of it, build that part out even more in terms of reimbursements and handling those. But again, we're trying to just be rather generic with the implementation now so we can cover multiple needs. And so let me just take a quick look here and show you a little bit about how this will look. So this is an employee view. So when they come in and they're looking to punch, they'll see a new section down here in the bottom, add amount. And so when they click that, they would be presented with two options or two fields, one being able to select the type, and so cash or credit, and then which probably oftentimes for an employee, it would be cash at this point in time, but credit is an option. And then they can also specify an amount. And then once they punch, it will be, again, stored and we'll provide a summary of that, which I'll show just in a moment here. And then likewise on the administrative side, we will be adding a new add amount feature or a button on the time card detail. And so here it's very similar. We'll kind of default to the date that they're trying to add it. Not that it's necessarily going to be relevant depending on how they're tracking this information, but it will be there for kind of payroll purposes, but also if they want to set a date, they can. And then we'll see the type and amounts fields here. And so where this can become useful is, as a manager, if I'm at the end of the week or the end of the payroll, I'm going to add, all these credit tips have come in for my employees, so I'm going in and I need to add credit tips for any number of employees. So I can do that here in kind of a quick and easy way. And so the last piece, which will be basically a similar view for either the employee or a manager, is down here in the bottom right. We'll be adding a new additional amount summary, which again, just given whatever the payroll period is, we would be breaking that down into cash, credit, and total, and by week if appropriate. And then again, this would all flow into the export payroll process as well. So it's available when you're importing into PayEntry. So yeah, that is all that I have on the additional amounts. So I'll pause there, Heather, for questions. And actually, I think this is my last slide, actually. So we can catch up on any other questions that might have been in there.
Okay, so I don't think there were any other questions that we didn't get an answer to. I guess, you know what, the one question that I didn't ask was, can fingerprint readers be shared across multiple companies? So can one fingerprint reader be used across multiple companies?
That is a good question. I don't think that it can be. I'm just trying to think through the kind of the setup process in my head here, but I mean, yeah, I don't think it would be something that you can configure to work, at least simultaneously for multiple companies, just like moving it location to location if that's what they're looking for. So yeah, I don't think that would be something that's possible.
All right. We did get another question in. So, all right. So let's see here. Oh, it's a two-part question. So admin pay types, how can OT2 and absent and the other defaults be removed or made obsolete? Apparently having those options confuse the clients. Is there any way to make them not appear?
So OT2 and what were some of the other ones? Sorry.
And absent?
So they're just looking to remove them completely based on their config setup, I guess. Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't think we have an easy way to necessarily toggle those on or off based on a individual client's needs right now. So yeah, it's something that type of customization is something we would have to look at adding.
All right. So the next question is, some questions are coming in. So let's see. For inactive employees, how can we remove them from view? So the example is that client has 2 payrolls, a monthly and a biweekly, and the monthly people were added, but they shouldn't have been, but now they just won't go away. And they just want them to, not show up.
I guess there's not a great way to do it through the front end. My recommendation, and again, it's not great, but I think we would just need to work with Nate's team to do some data cleanup if that's the case. If it's something that's happening regularly, then we'd want to look at some better tool to do that. But if it's just a kind of a one-off type data cleanup project, then I think Nate's team would be able to probably be the best point of contact to help with that.
All right. So another question about jobs. So will there be an option for the employee to enter what job they're working on and then have it sync to the admin side? So they're basically saying in reverse order.
Yeah, right now that is not functionality that we're looking at. It would be just a single direction sync. Next gen to time management, and it would be a read-only list for the employee. But it's an interesting thought. We hadn't considered that. I think it would be, we'd have to think through some of the pros and cons to that.
A lot of trust you'd be putting into your employees to
right.
add new job codes.
So certainly interesting in kind of in terms of the idea there, but at least for this right now, it would just be just a read-only list for the employee to select from.
All right, so as of right now, there's no other questions. So maybe we'll give it a couple of minutes in case anybody has any other questions that come up. But we've got a copy of the question and answer box, so we'll definitely have a follow-up. And then obviously as we're working on our roadmap, we'll be communicating back and forth with our time management customers to help figure out how should we prioritize some different things. And everybody brought up a lot of good ideas on this call, so how do we factor that into the decision making process as well. All right, so There are no more questions in the chat. There's a couple of clarifying points, Matt, that
Mhm.
we'll just want to make sure we take offline and discuss. But thank you everybody for attending. We really appreciate it. And like I said, you'll get a copy of the recording. And then also you can always click on the registration link after this call is over and you'll be able to view the recording at any time.
All right, yes, thank you everybody. Thanks for joining. And again, feel free to reach out if you have any thoughts after the fact. We look forward to speaking with you soon.
Yeah, thank you guys very much. Have a good weekend.